an incredible sacred artifact said to possess unimaginable powers, an instrument that scattered the armies standing before it, killed those who touched it without permission, and most importantly allowed communication with God. This object, described as having a level of advancement far beyond its era or, according to the stories, a supernatural power, has throughout history filled people's hearts with fear and myths and legends while also increasing their curiosity. So was the past of the Ark of the Covenant truly divine? Or did ancient people and myths deify a superior technology and pass it down to us that way? And if that is the case, what was the source of this superior technology? Let us travel together into the misty depths of history and try to uncover the truth. The Ark of the Covenant is one of the most important and fascinating narratives in the Bible. In fact, you can find many replicas of this Ark in churches, synagogues, and Masonic temples all around the world. So what made this Ark so important? To find the answer to this question, we travel to Mount Sinai in Egypt. It is the 15th century BCE. According to the book of Exodus, the Israelites who left Egypt under the leadership of Moses were heading through the desert toward their new homeland. When God called Moses to Mount Sinai, after a 40-day meeting, he gave him the stone tablets containing the 10 Commandments. But along with that, God also gave Moses the blueprint for building a chest. Yes, as I always say, the relationship between God and humans in the Torah resembles the relationship between one created being and another created being. Those people called a very different being God, Moses placed them. Tablets he received inside the chest that had been built according to specific instructions. And thus, the Ark of the Covenant was born. Now some of you might ask, is it a crime to know this? But the matter is not that simple. God told Moses exactly how to build the Ark. Tell them to build a holy place for me, so that I, God, may dwell among them. The Ark must be a rectangular chest made from acacia wood, about 1 meter by 1.5 meters in size. It must be covered with gold. Gold rings will be attached to its four corners, and the Ark will be carried only by the Levites using poles that pass through these rings. On the lid of the Ark there will be the cherubim, winged guardian angels facing each other, quite clear, precise, and technical instructions. Aren't they a rather simple matter for an all-powerful God? With the Ark, God set out with the Israelites who had left Egypt on a 40-year journey toward their new homeland, Jerusalem. And during this entire time, the Ark was carried with great care and accompanied them on their journey. Of course, examining the details of this sensitivity is very important, because when we analyze all these transportation precautions and what happened to those who did not follow these rules, a massive truth appears before us. The Ark of the Covenant was not an ordinary chest. It was actually a protective structure. So what was being kept inside the Ark? Whatever was stored there is difficult to state clearly and exactly, but there is one undeniable fact we know. That object was definitely extremely radioactive. A moment ago I told you that during the long journey, the Ark was ordered by God to be carried by a specific tribe, the Levites. So who were these men? What kind of characteristics did they have that allowed them to carry the Ark? First of all, while carrying the Ark, the Levites always covered it with a cloth. It was strictly forbidden for anyone except the high priest to look at the Ark. Not only that, the Ark of the Covenant had to be kept at least half a kilometer away from people at all times, inside a specially prepared tent with a wooden framework, covered in sections with metal plates and cloth. I am sure the situation is starting to sound more and more astonishing to you. Let me surprise you a little more. Only one Levite was allowed to enter this isolated tent. The person entering wore a long garment made of a special fabric, attached a metal plate that specifically protected the chest and genital area, and was monitored by the Levites outside using a rope with a bell attached to it. As long as the bell made a sound, there was no problem. It meant the person inside was still moving, but if the bell suddenly stopped, it meant the Levite had died, and his body would be pulled out using the rope by now. All of this must have created a clear idea in your mind. But let me add the final touch. It is said that those who touched the Ark without permission either died instantly with a sudden flash and sound, or worse, they fell ill in agony and rotted to death. All of this points to radiation poisoning and electrical energy. I leave the interpretation of the Ark to you. But one thing is certain, whatever this object was and whatever it contained, it apparently could produce electricity from a radioactive source. That is a clear fact. So what do you say to examining the event in a little more detail during their journey? The Israelites arrive at the famous city of Jericho, and God tells them to conquer it. God sends a message through the Ark of the Covenant, telling them to walk around the city walls. For 6 days, the Israelites circle the city walls. And on the 7th day, all the Israelite warriors shout with all their strength toward the fortress walls behind the ark and blow their trumpets. According to the story, when all these sounds combined with a strange sound coming from the ark, the massive towers of Jericho trembled and shattered into pieces. This naturally reminds people of Tesla's famous vibration oscillator. Anyway, let's continue. Many years pass, around the 1300s BCE. The Israelites and the Philistines face each other again, and the Ark of the Covenant is with the army. But something unexpected happens, and the Israelites lose the battle. The Ark of the Covenant, called the Throne of God, falls into the hands of the Philistines. And disasters begin. The people begin examining this great spoil and keep it in the center of their city. But within a short time, diseases described as skin sores and rapid aging begin to appear. In fact, no matter which Philistine city the ark is sent to, the same illnesses devastate the people. Eventually, the Philistines assume it is a curse from God, and they place the ark on a cart pulled by oxen and send it toward the village of Beth-Shemesh so that the Israelites can find it again. In myths, this event is described as a miracle of God. However, anyone who has read about the Chernobyl disaster will recognize that this is exactly what radiation poisoning looks like. I always say this, ancient people always describe technology as magic and divinity. In the myths, they portrayed this as God punishing the Philistines. However, even the Torah refutes this claim. Because when the ark arrives in the Israelite land at the village of Beth-Shemesh, the people run toward it with excitement. But since the ark was a technological machine, it caused the death of those 70 people as well. After that, the Levites immediately take the necessary precautions and secure the ark again. Perhaps the best example is the story of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, who approached the ark. At that moment, the bright sparks emerging from the ark enter through the noses of these two young men and knock them to the ground. They lose their lives as if their bodies had been cooked from the inside. When we think about it now, if this were truly a divine object, why would it kill those who believed in it as well? Moreover, in all the stories, every type of death and illness described always points us toward radioactive energy. In fact, during my research, I came across another interesting piece of information. According to the story, after Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, the Pharaoh suddenly changed his mind and pursued them with his entire army. You may have wondered what kind of reasoning would lead a man to chase after slaves like that. A whole country does not depend on them. And yes, you are right, there is something strange here that defies logic. Some theorists say that when Moses left Egypt, he stole an extremely important object from there, the stone that powered the pyramids. Now some of you may ask, what do pyramids have to do with power? It is said that when this stone disappeared, the operating systems of the pyramids stopped functioning, and the Pharaoh pursued Moses with all his strength. It is even claimed that the Ark of the Covenant itself was designed by God specifically to contain and protect this stone. The stories clearly state that there was an unknown object inside the Ark, designed only to insulate and transmit the power of that object, according to these claims. After this event, the Egyptian civilization entered a period of decline and lost its former power. However, I want to add an important note. The events described here absolutely do not align with mainstream history. In Egyptian records after the Sumerian period, there is no mention of the story of Moses, nor is there any record of such a massive event. In fact, these stories are believed by some to refer to events that occurred before the flood, but were mistakenly placed into later history. When all this information comes together, the story actually begins to make more sense, doesn't it? So did the story end here? Of course not. The real part begins now. It is time to explain the most important feature of the Ark of the Covenant mechanism, its ability to allow direct communication with God. Petra, Jordan, at the summit of Jabal Haroun stands a solitary mausoleum. It is believed to be the tomb of Aaron, the brother of Moses, according to the Torah. Aaron was personally chosen by God to be the chief spiritual authority of Israel, a tremendous responsibility. Throughout his life, Aaron served as the priest of the ark, and after him the Levites who descended from his lineage took over this sacred duty. This elite group had the honor of carrying the ark, and their leader had the privilege of approaching the ark itself and speaking directly with God. To speak with God? What do you mean? And by people who were not even prophets. If you are wondering how that could be possible, keep watching. Do you remember the two angels facing each other on top of the ark? According to what is written in the Torah, God would manifest in the small space between the wings of these two angels and speak with his servants. Jews call this place the mercy seat. Now when we approach this scientifically, the design of the Ark of the Covenant is exactly the same as an energy capacitor. The outside is conductive, the middle is insulating, and the inside is conductive again. Whatever object it contained was also a power source. In other words, yes, if you approached it carelessly, you would receive a powerful electric shock. Remember the metal plate that the high priests wore on their chests? That plate is called the breastplate of judgment and contains 12 special stones. These stones were symbols of the 12 tribes of Israel, but from the stories, it is understood that they also had other functions in the Talmudic texts. An interesting feature of these stones is mentioned whenever the priest approached the ark. A high-pitched buzzing pulse would be heard. These vibrations would cause the plate on the priest's chest to tremble and the 12 stones to illuminate. These were called the fire stones. Through this, the priests were able to communicate with God. You can think of it as something similar to Morse code. However, the communication was not limited only to Morse-like signals. Between the wings, the image of God would appear to the servants he chose. This immediately reminds people of a familiar technology, doesn't it? Hologram technology. Let's continue. 100 years after the Philistines returned the ark, King David brings it to Jerusalem to build the first great temple. The temple was completed during the reign of Solomon, and the ark is placed in a special chamber called the Holy of Holies. From there, it continues to guide and provide power to the people of Israel for another 3 centuries. And I mean literal power. The ark is literally the power center at the heart of the temple. Just know this, the prophet Solomon ruled at the very peak of the ancient technologies we have been discussing. His story is truly fascinating. The story of Prophet Solomon is so extraordinary that you cannot help but remain amazed. We will discuss this in another video. Returning to our topic, the power and construction details of many technologies used by Solomon were said to originate from this very chamber. In fact, God guided his servants from here for centuries and ruled the Israelites through it. But after hundreds of years, something happens that no one expected. The Israelites, who were considered the nation of God and ruled under him, are defeated by the Babylonians, whom they regarded as unbelievers. And the house of God itself is destroyed. Now you understand why I keep repeating that the being whom the Jews called God was not the all-powerful creator, don't you? This destruction became a turning point for the people of Israel and their faith, because on that, they both, their God and the Ark of the Covenant, disappeared, and today no one knows where either of them is. Or do they? Mount Sinai, Japan. Followers of the Shinto religion perform a very unusual ritual even though they live thousands of kilometers away from Jewish lands and have no direct connection with tea. They carry a golden chest and take it to the summit of a mountain. According to these believers, the spirit and the secret of God reside inside the chest. Some Japanese researchers who noticed this similarity began examining the Torah as well and discovered several extraordinary parallels between the two religions. Scholars studying the Kojiki texts found that some mythological stories described that were almost identical to those in the Torah, and they began to think that the two religions might be connected through an unknown origin. Research on this topic is still ongoing, based on this idea. Many scientists believe that after the Babylonian destruction, the ark was taken out of Israel and transported to this mountain in Japan to be hidden until the right time. In fact, the Japanese historian Takajima Senri was so convinced that the ark was on this mountain that he initiated an excavation in 1936. After years of digging, nothing was found. and the area was declared a national park, making further excavation illegal, of course. Saying nothing was found while simultaneously banning excavations is another matter entirely. What do you think? The Ark may not have been found in Japan, but its legend had already spread across the entire world, and the search continues even today, among the Dead Sea Scrolls, which reshaped the history of religions with their discovery in recent years. There is one particularly interesting text, the Copper Scroll. According to Jim Barfield, the Copper Scroll did not contain divine stories or sacred knowledge. It was specifically prepared as a secret treasure map describing the locations of important treasures and the relics taken from Solomon's temple. This included the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Book of Maccabees, the person who did exactly this was the prophet Jeremiah. It is even said that he escaped through tunnels beneath the temple. Today we actually know that there is a massive network of tunnels beneath the temple. However, none of them appeared to be escape routes until the tunnel discovered in 2007. This newly discovered tunnel was a secret escape passage that led from the very center of the temple toward the end. Irby Kidron River, according to rumors. The Ark and the treasures were smuggled through this route to Qumran. Qumran is also the place where the Dead Sea Scrolls were hidden. The Copper Scroll mentions 64 hidden locations. All of them are places scattered around the Qumran region where various treasures were supposedly hidden. One of them is described like this, steps to the east. 40 cubits long. According to the scroll, 500 kilograms of silver were hidden here. Barfield searched the area and actually found it. Later he searched for a second place that supposedly contained a well and a courtyard, and he discovered that, according to the scroll. 33 tons of gold were hidden beneath that location. Barfield immediately went to the authorities with evidence and requested permission to expand the excavations. But all his research was suddenly banned. To convince them, he used a metal detector, and just as he predicted, the detector went crazy, giving extremely strong signals. Barfield presented this report to the government as well. But it was rejected again, continuing his research. Barfield discovered a cave mentioned in the scrolls. It was indeed there, and its entrance had been sealed centuries ago with concrete. He found the metal density that was 5 times higher than previous locations, but as you might expect, permission to excavate was once again denied. Although Barfield insists the Ark of the Covenant is there, many historians believe it was taken by the most mysterious organization, the Knights Templar. During the Crusades, after the plundering of Jerusalem, the Knights Templar rapidly achieved unimaginable wealth and claimed to protect secret knowledge. Legends say they found gold, precious stones, and the Ark of the Covenant in hidden chambers beneath the Second Temple, and took them to France. For centuries they increased their wealth, but eventually they were captured and burned with the support of the Vatican by French King Philip IV. It was a terrifying way to erase a debt you cannot repay after that. Rumors spread that the Ark was taken to Scotland, and then to America. Some claim it is hidden on Oak Island or in Ethiopia. The story becomes increasingly complicated as we look for the truth. But remember the saying, if you want to hide something, place it in the most obvious place where everyone can see it, but no one will notice it. Our journey following a lost trace brings us back to Jerusalem. In front of us stands the Dome of the Rock. According to Islamic belief, this is the place where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to the heavens on a mount called Burak to speak with God. This place, extremely important for Muslims, is actually built on top of the remains of the sacred temple of the Jews. And for this reason, it has been the biggest obstacle preventing Israelis from excavating the area to search for the Ark. However, in 1981, someone overcame this obstacle. Rabbi Yehuda Getz, the highest rabbi of the Western Wall, began a secret and forbidden excavation. By coincidence, Muslims present in the sanctuary heard the knocking sounds and informed the police, and the group conducting the secret excavation was raided. Naturally, chaos followed for days. Tensions rose, fights broke out, and conflict spread. Fortunately, before things escalated further, the police intervened and sealed the tunnel. But Rabbi Gitz always claimed that they were only a few meters away from finding the Ark and that the Jews must complete this mission. So could this be true? Did the Ark of the Covenant never actually leave its home? According to some theorists, the answer is yes. They even connect this to a very unusual phenomenon, UFO sightings reported in the region in 2011. The UFO seen above the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem caused a huge debate. But in the story of the Ark's origin, it has always been portrayed as the meeting point between God and humanity. So honestly, even if that UFO footage were real, it would not surprise me at all. There's a prophecy thousands of years old. There is a very interesting prophecy in the book of Zechariah. According to it, at the appointed time there will be a massive earthquake in Jerusalem. The text says that this earthquake will be caused by a type of sonic vibration coming from beneath the earth. The idea of vibrations should sound familiar, because we encountered the same concept in the story of the collapse of the walls of Jericho. You might think the reappearance of the Ark would simply be a normal event, but it is described as the sign of the apocalypse. According to Jewish belief, once the Ark is found and the Temple of Solomon is rebuilt, God will return and begin the final war. Christians call this the return of Jesus, the Messiah. In some Islamic traditions, this event is described as the arrival of the Mahdi. In short, the essence of the story is a mission aimed at reconnecting with the godlike alien figure and bringing it back to rule. But one question comes to mind. If God is everywhere, why would his communication end simply because a temple was destroyed? After all this information, I leave the answer to you. Because the truth is actually quite clear at this point, however. Fanatic ideologies and corrupted beliefs seem to be pushing humanity toward a very dangerous point. I hope that neither Muslims, nor Jews, nor any other group ever finds the Ark of the Covenant. Perhaps one day, in a future where people respect one another, the Ark might become not a threat, but an opportunity. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed the mysterious train, please subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until we meet again on our next fantastic journey, stay on the mysterious train.